The spotlight clearly is now on Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. What does this conflict mean for his future? Let's break that down. On the positive side, Khamenei has managed to survive the regime change threat, emerging stronger in the eyes of the Iranian public. He's seen as a leader who stood up against the formidable forces of the United States and Israel, and the war has showcased Iran's capacity to strike back at Israel, reinforcing Khamenei's image as a resilient and defiant leader. However, the negatives cannot be ignored. The war has dealt a significant blow to Iran's nuclear program, which Khamenei had long touted as a symbol of national pride. This setback is a bitter pill to swallow for a regime that has invested so much in its nuclear ambitions. Moreover, Iran finds itself more isolated in the region, with its adversaries emboldened and its alliances strained. So what's next for Khamenei? His position may have solidified for now, but the road ahead is fraught with challenges. The supreme leader's ability to navigate these turbulent waters will determine now what will be his legacy and also his future and the future of Iran itself. Let me bring in our guests now. Professor Jahangir is joining me from Israel, Tel Aviv to be specific. James Bowden is joining me as well. He's a Middle East expert. James, I'm beginning with you. What do you think Khamenei achieved the end game, but it came at the cost of what he had projected so far as his country's pride, the symbol of Iran's pride, which was the nuclear weaponry and the nuclear systems?
Well, I'd like to emphasize to begin with that I think if I were Khamenei, I would stay hidden for the next week or two. Israel, their intelligence community has a saying that plans fail for a lack of deception, but in a multiplicity of deceptions, there's victory. And so even though we're in a nominal ceasefire period, I think that he should guard his position and keep himself hidden for a little while to make sure that Israel doesn't take an opportunistic strike. For Khamenei, he can definitely emerge and say that, yes, he did keep the country intact to a point. The Iranian propaganda machine and media messaging is very strong, and so they're not going to back down. I mean, you've got two countries in the Middle East, both Israel and Iran, who have extensive training in publicizing their victories and minimizing their defeats. You hear about the victories in the news, and then you read about in the history books their defeats. And so I think that for the first few weeks, we're going to continue to hear nothing but, hey, we've succeeded, we defeated the Israelis, we got them to back down and got them to be pushed into a ceasefire deal. And for a while, we're going to hear that Israel was highly successful.
So, but who won and who lost? Can Khamenei tell his people that he actually managed to, emerge stronger, that Iran emerged stronger despite attacks, precision strikes on Iran's nuclear sites?
No, Iran has not emerged stronger. They have lost even what little conventional military they had. Their nuclear program is in tatters. It has not been obliterated. We'll scale back and roll back some of that Donald Trumpian language, but it was significantly damaged. We're back to about 2009 or so. So no, Iran is not stronger. They are visibly weakened. They have been weakened over the process of this war. October 7th, 2023 really was a watershed moment. It totally opened the door for reshaping in the Middle East. And now Iran is not able to be in the hegemonic position that it was previous to this. Their nuclear program was one thing that they could kind of wave around in the Middle East and say, we're going to be able to nuke you in a short time. And now that's gone. And so they're visibly weaker. Now, that doesn't mean that the Middle East is in a better position, because as I've been saying on a number of occasions, the Persian Gulf and many of the Middle Arab countries, they didn't want a hegemonic Iran, but they certainly don't want a hegemonic Israel. And watching as they've gone from victory to victory, I'm sure that has increased their fear as to what they may face from that area.
Okay, so Professor Jahangir, how is the Middle East, what changes in the Middle East after this war?
Namaskar. A lot changes in the Middle East, but I really want to come to the question, who won? So there was this very famous IR scholar, Kenneth Waltz, who said, winning a war, or someone who claims winning a war, is like winning an earthquake. Nobody wins a war.
Yes.
There is a relative degree of defeat. And as James said, Iran has lost the significant part in this battle. Israel has certainly lost some people, but Israel has achieved what it really wanted to achieve for the last 20 years, and a strike on the Iranian nuclear program. I think a new Middle East will be new if Donald Trump gets to the business of the Palestinian state. I'm sure there are many people who talk about, will he get the Nobel Peace Prize? He will get a Nobel Peace Prize if he really recognizes the Palestinian state and joins the Saudi and the French initiative to recognize the Palestinian state that were just on the table before 13th of June happened. So I think new Middle East is really far unless that happens. And we don't see that possibility because Israel's war in Gaza is going to really follow the same path after this attack. I was listening to the Israeli members of the Knesset from the Yesh Atid party that you were talking before. And yes, I have been in Israel for the last 3 weeks, and this was the first time in maybe last 15, 20 years that Israel was united, deeply united behind Netanyahu. And maybe Netanyahu has assured another electoral victory for himself by doing what he did in Iran. However, the real problem of the Israeli future is actually in Gaza and with the religious divisions within the society. I think Arab world may not fear hegemonic Israel. Israel will not be hegemonic because Israel also suffers a deep diplomatic isolation. Let's not forget, just before 13th of June, some of the most formidable Western countries, England, Canada, Australia, Norway, they issued a sanction against the Israeli sitting ministers of the cabinet. So I think Israel will have to attend a lot of business to what happened in Gaza and what's happening inside Israel for the coming years. And Arab world is on a different path. They have joined Abraham Accords. They are doing I2U2. They are doing IMAC with India. I think Arab world is also.
So you are sensing, Professor Jahangir, that perhaps the Abraham Accords will now finally see the light of the day. That long-touted, victory which was seen by the United States of having brokered, or at least the talks had begun between Saudi Arabia and Israel, will go back to the talking table.
I wish it really gets revived. I do think that now the circumstances have completely gone in favor for the allies of Israel to push Israel out of unilateralism. Think of it, India. India's economic corridor relies upon a stable Middle East. So what would Indian counterpart will ask Israeli Prime Minister? Anything but to say, let's make the region stable and let's work. So Israel cannot be on a unilateral path that it is determined for last 2 years in Gaza. So it's actually going to be a much diplomatic, unpleasant time for Israel now that the world has shown that it is behind Israel. All of the allies, including India, by the way, it has stood firmly behind Israel. It did not condemn the unprovoked, as so-called unprovoked attack on Iran.
Okay, so, here is Iran, James Borden, which is claiming moral victory. Here is Israel, which is claiming victory. United States also says that it played a role and hence Donald Trump is the peacekeeper. Everybody seems to be happy towards the end now.
Yes, and I think that we're going to be entering into a very interesting period because I'm already hearing and picking up in Israeli media some voices of frustration, some voices of feeling like they haven't gotten everything done. And going back to a previous point about the post-conflict politics, whenever Israel has been in a time of feeling peaceful and reassured, they've taken that anger and frustration towards the region and turned it inwards. And so I'm not exactly sure how long this is going to last. Israel and Iran have had historical existential hatred towards each other. And so we may be in a break. We may actually see Israel-Iran war 2 come down the pike because there may be feelings that they did not accomplish everything that they wanted to the first time.
All right, James Bowden and Professor Jahangir, really appreciate your time. Thank you.